Guys, if you have an Iver Johnson revolver of the type from made about 1895 to about 1939, and they're Iver Johnson or U.S. Revolver Company, you can actually pick these up quite inexpensively because they have a weakness or a fatal flaw, and that flaw is the firing pin spring. Okay? The firing pin spring is a little tiny, very weak spring, and it's very easy to break or lose its tension over 100 years. And when that happens, the firing pin on the revolver will be loose, will come out from the body of the pistol, and that will cause it to bind when you're trying to advance. You don't notice it when there is no round in the chamber. It'll go ahead and spin. But when it's loaded and you're trying to use it, it'll hang up on the shells as you try to advance the cylinder, and it'll lock it up, and it will not be an effective weapon. So what you need to do is you need to fix that spring, and that's easier than you might think. All you have to do is have a flat screwdriver, remove this pin here. So get that out. Pull that pin. Okay. Now the cylinder and barrel will come loose from the body, and you have just the back of the pistol. And then you look here, and you'll see that you've got two little holes opposite from the firing pin. Now, I bought several different tools to try to figure out how to get this, and this one was the most effective. And then I tried using it with the handle, and it flexed too much. So what I ended up doing is just attaching it to a vice grip at the right distance, see? And then that held them firm enough that I could get the thing loose. So what's remarkable to me is that both the 32 and the 38 caliber have identical parts, identical firing pin, identical circle, identical spring. So they didn't upsize anything for the 38 over the 32, which might suggest that might be a little under-engineered. Now I've got it loose enough that I can do it by hand here so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. Just unscrew that. That'll come out. And then the firing pin will come out with the spring. And there's the firing pin. Now these parts are all readily available. They made so many of these things that they're findable. But I would just give that a good cleaning out. And you don't have to buy a new spring, guys. Just take a pin apart. Right. Pick one with a hidden. The cool thing is you don't need to buy a new firing pin spring, guys. Just take a pin apart. Here's your spring right there. Just this is a bit stouter and a bit better metal than the original, same size, and we'll just cut this to length and we'll fit it in. Fortunately, I have a little tin snip here, and we can just measure out about the right number of coils. on the pin. Give it a snip. So there's the old firing pin and there's the new firing pin spring. And I think that they're about the same length. Put a little lubricant in there. Put the firing pin back in. Put the spring back in. Put the firing pin cover back on. Give her a few twists. Okay. And then we can just go ahead and put that back on. Like that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the aspects of this revolver. See, now we've got it back together, and you can see that no firing pin is showing. But if you drop the hammer, there she goes. She's out, and that's enough to bite the shell and cause a detonation. So this US revolver is now fixed. Function. Now I'll tell you, I had my doubts when I was looking at my first, this is a first model Iver Johnson, not even legally a firearm. And you can't actually see where the threads would be that this thing would unscrew on that. But it does, and I'm going to do it because this one needs to be fixed too. Anytime you see an Iver Johnson with this this catch, it is before 1901 production, and hence it isn't actually legally a firearm. As a matter of fact, I bought this over the internet. It was just mailed to me first class. It doesn't need to be registered as a firearm. Most of them have a catch more like this. That's the second and third model revolver. I'm going to get this guy out. Okay, surprise, surprise. The pre-1900 black powder version is ever so slightly wider than the 38 was. So I'm going to plant these both in there, and I'm going to clamp down this vice grip on them so they won't bend and flex. And I'm going to take this thing apart. And there she went. Now you can see that there is actually and now with just a little bit of a turn, you can see that there actually is a threading, and it isn't one piece of metal, which is what it appeared to be at first. This hasn't been apart since before the Titanic was built, so it's a little tight, but there she goes. Bingo. Come on. Didn't want to come out. I actually had to get some needle nose here so I could pull it out. Come on, baby. There you go. As you can see, that spring has seen better days. That is not a very springy looking spring. So cutting off a new spring. About 3 coils will do you. Tell you, that one looks a lot livelier than that one. And she's all back together again and working just the same. Yay! So at this point, both these fine top brake revolvers have been restored to full function. I've already fired them out at the range, and they both worked fine in single shot mode. They just jammed when they advanced because of that whole firing pin thing I was talking about. But now that's rectified. I'm sure they're just fine. I do want to talk just a little bit about these guys because they don't work like your modern Smith & Wesson. That is, they don't lock up when they're in the resting mode. The cylinder is free to spin. That's the design. That's what they do, okay? The locking pin only comes up when it's fully cocked. And when it's fully cocked, it locks with a spring action. It actually could still go back a little bit. It won't go forward, right? But what it does is it lines itself up. Lines itself up perfectly. You know, we can show that, right? Okay. Lines itself up perfectly. The neat thing about these guys is that the firing pin is so small and the primer is so small on the 32 round that it will only, firing pin will only hit primer if the cylinder is lined enough up that it will safely fire. So I think there's virtually no chance that this gun is ever going to blow up in your hand. I mean, I cannot promise you, but they've never blown up in my hand. And also, although there's a lot of talk about they might not be safe for modern ammunition, you can still get 32 Smith & Wesson and 38 Smith & Wesson short. You can still get the ammunition for them, and they seem to fire fine. And I'm not going to fire hundreds of rounds through them, but I have no hesitation in using these for self-defense. Not at all. Have a great day.